Hey guys, what's going on? Paul here and back with another live stream. Have a special guest on the channel today, an overdue collaboration, I would say. I have Farid from Dapp Central. Farid, very welcome and thanks very much for taking the time to come on. You're just on mute there, Farid.
Thank you, Paul. I completely agree with you there. This has been more than overdue, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here and break everything down as to what's going on in Cardano.
Yeah, it's great. I think we'll kind of keep it sort of like what myself and Paddy do. It's a conversation. We'll talk about some of the topics. If people have questions in the comments down below, do fire them in and we'll ask or we'll answer as much as we can, or we'll discuss it. We'll give our opinions. There's no one opinion, no one right answer, especially when it comes to opinions on protocols and stuff like that. So jump in, welcome everyone. I see Eric, Damon, welcome guys to the stream. Thanks for jumping in. Anyone coming in, please do give it a like, share it out. The more people we get in, the more questions, hopefully the more value and a bit of a laugh we have throughout this too. So Farid, just in case, I would say 99% of people watching this in Cardano know who you are, but for the ones that don't, do you want to give the intro? And the link to Farid's channel is in the description. Make sure you subscribe if you're not already.
Yeah, first off, thank you again for bringing me on. Thank you for sharing the links to all my socials. My name is Farid. I run the official Dapp Central YouTube channel. And I was telling Paul this before I came on, before I was a content creator, I was a content consumer watching Paul's content, Pete's content, Josh from Link in Crypto, and quite a few other content creators. And so I've stepped into the space within the last 2 years. I've been growing my own channel and I'm finally excited to be, collaborating with some of the big dogs here within the space. So thank you again for sharing your platform, Paul.
No, look, I appreciate your time coming on, and the quality of content you've been putting out is top notch. So hopefully we can collaborate a bit more going forward too. I think I get value from these. I learn from talking to other people and taking people's opinions on board too. So see, Damon has some alpha for us here. They have 2 feeds up for stablecoin markets on pre-prod. Can't share more than that yet. So something for maybe the two of us to go and dig for after this, but anyone else who wants to dig, off you go. Damon, I'd say both of our inboxes is open if you have any TX that you want to drop in there too to speed up that search. So look, there's lots going on. What's your thoughts on where Cardano is now, kind of where compared to where you thought it might have been, or the future potential? Just your overall opinions on where we are.
Yeah, great question. I think to kick things off, I think we're still in early stages. Obviously, we just had a mini DeFi run, and that's kind of cooled off, right? We've seen, I think, some big pullbacks in the last few days, which I think is warranted, right? Not everything is going to be going up and to the right, but generally speaking, we're seeing the growth of Cardano. We're seeing TVL hitting new all-time highs in terms of the ADA valuation. And we're seeing DEX is doing really well in terms of, handling the volume, handling the traffic. And then we're also, again, seeing some of the DeFi platforms coming online. So we've got Lenfi getting a lot of usage. I think we'll be touching on their monthly stats here in a couple of minutes. But then we've also got platforms like Levvy Finance, which I think were some of the big underdogs that really had a lot of traffic and a lot of eyeballs coming towards them as well. We've got MELD gearing up for their launch and a few other platforms, for example, like OPT, as well as Linkage Finance. So I think we're still at the very, very beginning of what is yet to come. Obviously, the Bitcoin halving is, about a year or so out. And this is just, I think, in my personal eyes, a small taste of what is to come.
Yeah, I agree. In terms of price and everything moving, I would say, properly into a real bull run, that type of stuff doesn't generally happen until the halving comes about. And then after that, things kick off. That's if we stick to previous cycles, which I think we're going to stick very closely to. And like you mentioned, lots of different protocols there. It's great to finally be at the stage in Cardano where there are multiple protocols starting to launch or starting to really build. And I think Cardano still needs improvements on the scalability side, and hopefully we will get some of them fairly soon that will allow these protocols and dApps to really, really perform when the bull market happens, because things seem busy at the minute. Like we had meme coin season or a mini season there for a while, and we had DeFi there, but the volumes that's happening there, they look good right now. But I think in 12 months time, the type of volumes we could be looking at are going to be them types of levels and above, sustained over longer periods. So getting ready for that is good. And these types of tests are great for the individual protocols to actually see what they're capable of, how things hold up under stress, and see what needs to be improved. So we'll jump into what else. Actually, you mentioned a few there protocols, but any that you're closely following or any that don't get airtime sometimes?
Yeah, I think one of them that I briefly touched on was Flag Finance. One thing that has been coming through my comments has been just to provide more coverage to that particular protocol, lending and borrowing platform. And interesting fact that I was not aware of was that the Cardano scan team is actually a part of the team that's also building out Flag Finance. I'm not sure about you, but I use Cardano Scan quite frequently, and it's a very solid product. And so I'm definitely going to be doing my due diligence and covering Flag Finance a little bit more. I know that they had a test net. It was also on mobile, and it was an incentivized test net. So I think that's one project that doesn't necessarily get a lot of coverage that I'm going to be looking more towards. And then there's another one that's going to be having a public token sale, which I'm sure you're more than aware. I saw you peeping into the Twitter space that the Linkage Finance team just had, right? Regarding, doxing themselves and basically explaining why they were having their public token sale at the time that they were. And so that's another one. I think the token sale is actually occurring today at 5 p.m. UTC. So I'll be keeping my eye out on that to see, number one, how does it fare? But then number two, how quickly does it sell out? Given the fact that we just saw OPT and they had their token sale, which sold out in I think 30 minutes. So those are the two projects that I'm looking at right now. I think there's a few more, but I'll give you a chance to kind of maybe expound on what you've been looking into.
Yeah, I agree. I like FLAC. It's one that I started to look into a while ago. Sorry, I missed it before it really took off to start picking up some of the token. I don't actually hold any now, but it's one, if we did get a retrace based on the solid team that's behind it. You mentioned there Cardano Scan. They've also built Typhoon Wallet, which it's pushing up there as nearly my favorite wallet right now. It's a really good wallet to use on Cardano. I've been Eternal for a long time, but for newer people coming in, something like Typhoon it's a brilliant, easy to use wallet. And even for NFTs, people who are into it, it makes it very easy to see them and search through them and stuff like that. So I agree on that. And Linkage Finance, I think it's going to be interesting on that. And I'll probably as well bring up my screen here because that was linked into some of our topics. Let me see. Brave. Should have had this lined up probably, but there we go. So Linkage Finance, you mentioned the sale is happening today and they have changed it so it's happening at 5 p.m. UTC, which is 5 hours from now. And initially they were going to give 2 hours where anybody who sent in a transaction in them first 2 hours, they were all counted the same. And if it sells out, then everyone would get back some of their ADA plus a percentage of the tokens they tried to get, trying to do it as a fair launch. And initially it was 2, now it's 1 hour just for anyone interested. This is the same as OPT, which you mentioned, they done it with half an hour. And it was anyone who got in that half an hour was all counted equally. And so I got into it and I got back. I didn't get all the allocation. I got some ADA back and I got some of the token back. And with the hype that has been going around in the last few days, I have a feeling that Linkage Finance will be the same. Whether it's going to have the same big push up in the markets in the following few days, I'm not sure. Generally, these types of things, each project has slightly less returns in the short term. And this isn't anything about the project in the long term in terms of Linkage Finance. I know they have links with some of the Muesli Swap guys. There was a bit of confusion, I think, in the Twitter space. I'm not sure if you got it actually. Are they just advisors or are they actually building as part of the protocol too?
I think they're advisors for sure. But I think that, at least from what I understood and took back, maybe I missed something, was that they had developers also maybe potentially helping out with some of the tech developments. Now, what's interesting is what you just shared there, which is the reduction of the time window from 2 hours to 1 hour. I just shot a video about this yesterday and it's already outdated. So it's a little bit unfortunate there, but I think this is only going to increase the amount of FOMO coming in because of the tight window now. So interesting development to see. And I couldn't agree with you more. I think this will sell out. But I'm interested to see, how the actual protocol rolls out following this. Another cool piece too is that the team, I believe, just announced that they'll be attending the Rare Evo conference taking place in Denver, Colorado. So I'm excited to see if I can maybe catch a few minutes with them to chat about what they're building and to potentially get a one-on-one. Because again, I think that's one of the things that a lot of people were a little bit taken back by, was the lack of visibility by the team. But I also understood where the team was coming from, given the fact that they had just really, I think I started following them about, I would say 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I remember they had below 1,000 followers. And now I think they're anywhere to about, 2 to 3, maybe even more now. Right. So I understand where the team is coming from and also understand where the community is coming from. And I think it's our jobs as content creators like yourself, right, who does a lot of interviews, to try to bridge that gap. So I'll be looking into what they're doing and trying to see if I can snag an interview. I'm interested to see, maybe do you have something already lined up with them?
No, haven't lined anything up yet. Had a few messages back and forward, but it was just a lot of it was answered then in the Twitter space. So before that, I was asking just about the links with Swap and a few different things there. They did have a private sale too, but that sold out extremely quick. I didn't get involved in it. I did ask to get in, but didn't get in. So it's not just allocations. Some people thought it was just allocations for YouTubers or something like that. I asked, but didn't get into it. So that should put that one away. And just, it will only happen on the Swap decks. I'm sure there's going to be scam links going around today. If you are, I'm not saying you should be getting involved. Everyone do your own research. But if you are getting involved, make sure you get the official links off their own Twitter. And it should be a link to Swap to get involved there. I think the option one was opt.muesliswap.com or whatever it is. But another thing on this was some people had concerns over how much Swap owned within this, because they have just launched a second protocol, which is option flow, and they brought out a second token for that. And people were saying, is this going to be the third token? And we know that there's another set of developers in Cardano has done the same thing, and there was concerns there. What's your thoughts on a pro or a team that builds multiple protocols and then ends up with multiple tokens? Is it fair, or where is the cutoff point in your opinion?
So I think it's a tough line to draw. Um, as long as they're delivering value, obviously, we're in an environment where people can do as they wish. So you can't really fault them for going that route. Now, some of the downsides, which I hear the community's point of view, is that it pulls liquidity from other platforms. And then it also makes it a little bit more of a hassle to keep up with each token, right? So I think that is some of the drawbacks. Some of the positives of going just with a single token is that you now have one token and you're adding constant value with each additional protocol that you're launching as a part of that ecosystem. So I think for me, ideally, if the projects are so close that they are considered to be a quote unquote part of the same ecosystem, right? I've seen a lot of people touting Swap as the DEX, OPT or options flow as the options platform, and then Linkage Finance as like the completion of the trifecta, right? With them being the index or ETF platform to kind of bundle all of this, right? To where they're all in a very niche sector, but they're not doing the same thing. Then I would think that, generally speaking, a single token would make the most sense. But if they are in fact being developed by different teams, there's different CEOs involved, there's different bits of utility, and there's different agendas, then yeah, I definitely think it makes sense to go with a separate token, because that would then only cause confusion if one of the projects ends up doing their own thing or breaking out, right? But if they would have said, hey, Swap is the only team developing this, there's no question about it. I think the fact that there's already questions as to who's developing what is enough for me to say it is valid to have a separate token. If we knew for sure, 100% of the Swap team is the 100% of the team developing the other protocol, then I think in that case, it would make sense to have a single token. But again, I understand where this concerns from the community are. And yeah, we'll have to see how things go. You alluded to that earlier, that we might see some people pulling liquidity from other protocols to join in the Linkage Finance sale. That is yet to be seen, but that's definitely something that I'll be keeping an eye on.
Yeah, I agree on that. And I think if you're going to have the same token from multiple protocols, you nearly need to plan that from very early on, plan it into the tokenomics, because depending on what the protocol is going to be, you might need extra tokens assigned for the community, for whether it's farming or whether it's incentives for different parts of it. But if you start to go beyond two protocols, two separate tokens, if Linkage Finance was completely Swap and this was the third protocol by the same team, that's when I'd be kind of saying, no, this isn't right. 2 tokens, I think is okay. But if you start going further on along the lines, I think it's very questionable at that point. So with the team being separate, then we'll let this one pass. But if they start coming out with another one fairly soon, we'll raise questions. And just you mentioned here on or liquidity coming out of other protocols, and we've definitely seen that. I'm sure most people watching are familiar with Tap Tools. It's nearly the first site I would go to most mornings just to get an overview of what's going on, and then it's Twitter after that. But you can see, actually refresh just to get the latest. But the last week, the last 24 hours has been rough for lots of protocols. Lenfi in particular has had a very big pullback in the last 7 days, down 30%. Now, it had been on a really big run. There's one point I'm going to touch on that in a few minutes and some of the reasons maybe for it specifically. But in general, a lot of red. And you can see here with option flow, I would bet on that there's lots of funds have been sold off their profits taken to get ready for Linkage Finance. And one thing I think will be very interesting is once the sale comes up this evening, probably later tonight and then tomorrow, I'll be looking into this to see the profits that were taken on the likes of Opt and Indie and how much of them actually go into the sale address for Linkage Finance, just to see who is actually taking profits. And you can get some data behind then whether all of this red is down to people taking profits to get in or not. And that's one of the big advantages of Tap Tools and how easy they make these types of things. And when the option flow sale happened, it was great to be able to go in here, look up the address and associated wallets, and you can see all of the inflow. But Tap Tools, something you use or?
Of course. Tap Tools is part of my daily regimen when it comes to keeping up with everything on the network. I think you hit it right on the head of the nail. Tap Tools, not only does it give you a view into your own personal portfolio, it gives you that broader picture that you need when you're trying to invest in something, right? So you've got the money flow, which I think has been huge for me, taking a look at, what are shrimps investing to this week? What are whales, sharks investing to? Where's money flowing in? Where's money flowing out? And I completely agree. I'm going to be taking a closer look at some of these stats, especially after the sale concludes, to see where is the money flowing out of, because I think you're onto something there, that with the OPT sale, right, we're seeing a lot of that crowd also really looking and eyeballing the Linkage Finance sale as well. So if we see a clear correlation between a sell-off in OPT and, a sellout within the Linkage Finance, and I would definitely think that is partially tied to why we might be seeing some of these big swings here in some of these protocols. As you mentioned, I mean, people in profits, right? If somebody was able to get in the OPT sale, which I think the public token sale was like, I think it was 0.3, if I'm not mistaken, it was around that range, 0.25 to 0.35. Anywho, I mean, that's a what, 2 to 3x from where we are now, right? Easy, depending on when the person got in. So I think you're onto something there. I'll be keeping an eye out. And yeah, I think Tappy or the Tap Tools platform is the best place to do it on. I held out for the longest on purchasing a Tappy, but after their sale and once they locked up the pro features, I was like, yeah, I mean, this is definitely worth it. And the price value in appreciation of Tappy has really shown that, right? I think at one point it hit 1,600 ADA and it's now back down to 1,000 ADA. So I definitely am a huge fan and support of Tap Tools.
Yeah, they've built a really useful, I suppose, and it's not a protocol, but a really useful platform for the community to come in, and you can get so much data from this. Even if you're not trading much, you just want to come in and look at the latest prices and stuff like that. Or if you want to go deeper, there's a lot there. And just for people who are going to be watching the sale this evening, I would say that you can watch where the funds have come in from, trace that back then and see which protocols then people took profit in. Because if they then make profit from Linkage Finance, potentially you're going to see them going back into the other protocols. So you might be able to find some decent buys on the pullbacks here. Maybe there's other reasons why the protocol is dipping, but there is a chance here to use this to see where the funds might flow back to when the people who have taken profits go into Linkage Finance and then try and come back to the protocols they believe in for the longer term. With Lenfi, I think there's a bit more to that than just what's going on with Linkage Finance and people taking profits. I know they had their vote where Snek got voted in as collateral, and it was touch and go whether it didn't get in, and then it did get in. And the initial vote, it looked like it didn't get in. But I'd say lots of people had bought Lenfi to get involved in that vote and potentially sold off after that. And there is a knock-on effect on this in that if we go over to, and this isn't saying anything bad about the protocol or anything like that before people jump on me for pointing out things like this. But if you look at DeFi Llama and you look at, it's still A8 over here that just needs to be updated. But if you look at the TVL, so what's used most for collateral on Lenfi, now this big green here is Snek. So before this whole thing was Lenfi. And there is the risk there that when a protocol is just using their own token as collateral, that if the token price of the protocol starts to fall, people get scared, they start to sell it off. You start to see mass liquidations where as the price drops, the collateral that people have given up for loans isn't enough and they all start to get liquidated. So it's a risky one. There's always, when a vote comes up for adding new protocols as collateral on Lenfi, it comes up and the community doesn't seem that open to adding new ones in. Like Snek had to really fight to get added in. And to me, I'd be saying, let more protocols in there. You want the TVL or what's used as collateral on the protocol to be far more distributed than just the tokens or to just the protocol's own token. I would say if I was building something like this, I wouldn't even let the token for the protocol be used as collateral because it does open up other risks. But like we've seen what's happened with Curve, and we might touch on that later on. And I'm not saying what happened with Curve in terms of the hack, but in terms of the big open loan that's there with Curve at the minute, there's a massive risk there because of using the protocol's own token as collateral. But what's your own thoughts on that and using token as collateral?
I think you said it well again. People have to be open-minded enough to understand that the bigger the variety, the more resilient the protocol is, right? So in this particular instance, like you were pointing out right there with that chart there in the token breakdown, imagine when all of that was that blue color and there was no Snek, right? How big of an impact a cascading liquidation could have. We saw, for example, with Indigo, and this was a part of their June and July monthly report, where we had a black swan where the SEC basically, deemed Cardano and a few other assets to be labeled as securities. And immediately Cardano sold off 25%. Now, that's an event that I think has happened 1 out of 9 or 10 different times. So it doesn't happen all of the time. However, what we saw on the Indigo protocol was a lot of people getting liquidated. And I think they even mentioned somewhere around 9.5, almost 10 million ADAs worth of liquidations occurring back to back to back as a result of that dramatic sell-off. And again, keep in mind that a lot of the CDPs opened up on Indigo are using Cardano as the main collateral, right? So I don't think that it's foreign that we are going to see these things happen over and over again. As you mentioned earlier, these are tests. We've seen, for example, Indigo get tested. I think we're now somewhat seeing the Lenfi protocol get tested with, I think, a 20% drop yesterday and the day before, something like that. And then we've also even seen JED itself also being tested, right? Where the reserves and the ratio was a little bit off for some time. So these are things that are going to happen. They're inevitable. But I think people have to kind of step away from the fact that they're just supporting a single token. I understand, Lenfi and the token or the Lenfi token is the governance token, but that doesn't necessarily mean that has to be the only version of collateral that you have on there. I think adding additional tokens, for example, like Snek and even other lending and borrowing protocols tokens would be helpful in the long term, because not only does it open up new liquidity, like we saw with Snek, right? Snek is now the second most used token in terms of collateral on the platform. And I think they brought like a couple millions worth of ADA to the platform. But if there's ever a cascade, now there's less of a likelihood that a lot of people are using Lenfi as the collateral token. So I think what you said, I have to echo that. I think you're spot on, and it's tough, but some people might not want to hear that. You may not, or you probably should not use the governance token as collateral because of situations just like this.
Yeah, I'm glad you agree. So you can be attacked as well as me, and it's not just me saying it. And look, when I bring up points like this, it's not to say or warn that a protocol is bad or anything like that. It's just to let people understand how these things work and the potential risks that come with them too. Because look, everything carries risk. Every single protocol or crypto carries risk. ADA carries risk. You mentioned there about with Indigo and the liquidations they had when the SEC came out. We've seen ADA drop by 25%, even more, I think, over a week. But in 24 hours, there was a 25% drop, which liquidated a lot. So nothing is fully safe. And we might get on to the latest on the SEC towards the end of this with, I suppose, Hex at the minute and rumors of Binance being charged. But them type of rumors are always out there. We'll stick to Cardano for now. Just let me see, was there any comments? So Villian says, Pokey is also a great platform tool to use to manage your Cardano NFTs. I checked out the free version before, and yeah, it was really good. I didn't get into the pro version, but I might check it out a bit more to see. Have you used Pokey?
Yeah, I actually hold more than one of the pro passes. Shout out to Lex, awesome developer. I know he's got a team with him, but he's probably the most visible within their Discord. It's to the point where I can jump in there, drop a question, and he'll ping back and answer my direct questions. But focusing on the actual product itself, it's been super helpful. Now, granted, it doesn't provide some of the granularity that Tap Tools does, but I think it does what it does very well, and that's keep track of your own personal portfolio. And it does a really good job of breaking down things when it comes to NFTs versus fungible tokens. And then a really cool feature that I like about Poke too is that it's on mobile, right? So you can wake up, check it out on mobile. They've got an iOS app. It gets updated very frequently. And then another cool feature too is the ability to see how active a particular collection you might hold or particular token you might hold within your wallet might be. So a lot of really cool things. I get some alerts and suggestions there. For example, when I was really overweight in a particular NFT collection, I got an alert telling me, hey, this particular asset makes up like 80 or 90% of your portfolio. It's probably not wise that you keep it like this, right? So a really good app, I think, really doing well in its own personal niche. Again, I don't think it's fair to compare that to Tap Tools because Tap Tools does a whole another side of things, but definitely shout out to Poke. I'm a Poke Pass holder.
Nice. Yeah, I'll have to take a closer look. So does that give them a sort of monopoly? I think this is back to when we were talking about Swap and Opt and now Linkage Finance to run 3 tokens on different protocols. I'm not sure in terms of monopoly because each of them would be run as 3 separate protocols. But it's, I suppose, the biggest risk on it is that the team gets big allocations within each protocol. So each time they issue a new token, the team would get a big allocation, or potentially big. Each can be different between different projects, but they get a new allocation that can be essentially sold off or dumped onto the market to make the founders can earn a lot of funds out of this. So anytime there's multiple tokens, it's always good to raise questions on why is it needed, or what's going to happen with it, or is there a reason for it? And maybe if they bring out new tokens, that the team allocation of the new token is very small, and that really is the token is coming out because the protocol needs it. So it's good to be aware and just to look through them things. Joseph, active in Discord. I will check that after this live stream. I'll go in and check out Discord. I didn't check it out today yet. I'm not that active on Discord, but I need to get more active on it. Cheers, Pete. Appreciate that. Eric, like platforms for P2P borrowing. I don't love that you can use collateral to borrow to go buy other tokens, like borrowing to gamble. I suppose that's the idea, though, of lending and borrowing, is that you use what you have, you leverage what you have in order to take out a loan, and then you can do whatever you want with the other tokens. So you could, in some protocols, put in your ADA. I suppose Indigo, it's synthetics, it's slightly different, but you put in your ADA, you mint something else. So instead of borrowing, you would mint it, and then you go off with your IUSD or your ZED or whatever it is, and you can use that to buy something else on the market that you think is going to go up. So you're not selling off your initial crypto, but you're still getting more leverage within the market. And there can be certain tax implications within certain countries where you don't sell your crypto, but you can still take advantage of it. And I'm not going to get into anything on specific countries and tax or anything like that. That's a minefield. Not sure how it all works, but it seems like that's kind of the idea of what people get into, Eric. So where to next? Will we look at the monthly reports for July?
Let's do it.
So since we mentioned Lenfi there, we'll take a look at them first. Since I was doing a lot of talking, do you want to take us through this one?
Yeah, not a problem. Looking at the top right there, I mean, I think that really just reiterates what you were just showing us there in that token portfolio on DeFi Llama, right? Lenfi coming in as the most used collateral, almost 14 million of the Lenfi tokens in terms of ADA value. We've got Snek coming in at number 2, and it's quite impressive to me how big of a drop off there is after that, right? So imagine when they had this chart without Snek on that. So I think here for me, this really shows that the Snek community, and them getting voted in, I think was the right thing in the bigger scheme because of the amount of value of ADA that they're bringing to the table here. Again, 4.5 million ADA. And then we have a huge drop off to a little bit over 250,000 of actual ADA being used. To me, that's very surprising. I would think, or I would hope, that more people would actually use flat out ADA in terms of lending and borrowing, especially as collateral, because we're in the space where Bitcoin is known as like generation 1. It's quote unquote the most safe. Ethereum number 2, second safest. And then you've got like the altcoins, right? Which Cardano falls within altcoins. So I would think people would use that first before using a Cardano native token, which is theoretically a lot more risky than Cardano or the ADA token itself. So that's an interesting piece for me to note right there. And I'll be keeping an eye out to see if other lending and borrowing protocols also have the same ratio or value when it comes to their own native token being used as collateral versus ADA. I think we need to see more ADA being used as collateral and not necessarily so much of the native or the underlying governance token. But again, that's a whole nother conversation. Most borrowed tokens at the bottom left-hand side there, ADA. So it's interesting. It's almost like an inverse relationship. People are putting up their Lenfi to borrow ADA. And so maybe that's why we're not seeing a lot of ADA being used as collateral, is because we're actually seeing it being borrowed on the back end. So interesting to note there. IUSD, I think it's somewhat expected. It's a safe haven, right? If you made some profits, or if you're maybe just looking to get into something stable, you can borrow against that. And obviously, like Paul mentioned earlier, there's different avenues that you can then take that IUSD and put that to work that may not be as risky. And then in terms of the most borrowed tokens, average APR at the bottom right-hand corner there, interesting again, Snek bringing in the highest APR in their first month. So 2, I think, huge immediate benefits as to bringing Snek on. This really just solidifies in my mind that the vote should have been yes. And it would have been unfortunate if it had gone to no, to see, now what we know, hindsight is 2020, what would have been missed out on. So that I think is it. We do have Iagon there with 37%. I know they've been getting a lot of eyeballs here very recently, and you've just interviewed Navjeet as well as Trim. But I think that's going to wrap it up there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think you've covered it, and we kind of touched on this when we were looking at DeFi Llama, just with Lenfi being the biggest token there, and people are using their Lenfi as collateral to what it looks like from this. Just take out ADA loan, so put up Lenfi to get ADA that they can then put the ADA to work. And for people who might be in big profits with Lenfi, it's not the biggest worry to them if they get liquidated, because basically they have sold their Lenfi for ADA then at that point. So some people might use it that way and think that put it up as collateral, they get out the ADA, they can do something else with it. And if they might be aware of the risks of having just the protocol's own token as collateral and play with them, and then think, look, if it gets liquidated, it's the same as selling the Lenfi for ADA. And at least it's nearly like a stop loss put in on your trade, that if it goes to that level, then it essentially gets sold and you keep your ADA instead of the Lenfi. But up next then, and yeah, it is impressive with Snek to see how much has been put into it so far. And anyone who has put in Snek is earning some very nice interest rates on what they have put in. We take a look then at Minswap. So July was a quieter month for them. I think May and June, the charts were just going up all the time for them. That was going through, I suppose, meme season was really in full flow, and there was a lot of volume going through dexes. And then even with DeFi, it kept it going steady. July has started to cool off. And I think when we look at August, it's probably not going to be that much of different than July, maybe even slightly down on that before we start to pick up then later in the year. But looking, you can see TVL was down slightly for the month, down 8.72%. Trading volume was the big one that was down 41%, and monthly unique users was down. But I'd say if we looked back at something from April, we're probably fairly similar stats to that point in terms of trading volume and active users. And looking here, Snek, Igon, Lenfi were the top three by far in terms of trading volume. And the fee switch has changed to, or has crossed 1 million ADA. So that is what they do, is they take a small percentage of all the fees on the DEX and they put it into the fee switch, which basically zaps the ADA into the Min ADA pair. So it sells off half of it for Min and puts that into the liquidity. So when you look at, if you look at the likes of Tap Tools, and if we look at liquidity, you can see Minswap has by far the highest liquidity, and that's down to the bootstrapping event they done in the beginning, plus what's happening with the fee switch and topping that up all the time. They have some changes potentially coming up to that I think will be really good for Min holders, where they'll be able to vote on that the ADA generated by the fees on the protocol might start going back to Min holders. So I think that's definitely something for people to keep an eye on and could be good going forward. Anything jumps out at you on Min before we move off?
No, I think what we're seeing is expected, as you mentioned, meme coins selling off. You know, we wouldn't expect for these numbers to just keep going green, 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 even when the meme coin mania is kind of slowed down, right? Interesting piece that you did note there on that very last piece about the fee switch. I think it does make sense for a protocol, especially early on, to go ahead and bootstrap like they have and make sure that their own token pair has a deep liquidity pool. And I think this is a clear example of them doing an amazing job of doing that, but then also being aware enough, right, to listen to the community and talk about actually giving back some of those profits back to the members now that they have a deep enough pool, right? So I think this will probably be something that, or at least what I would think would be something that they go back and forth on, you know, add liquidity, make sure that they've got enough, and then potentially give some of those rewards back over to the community. And then let's say as the space grows, you know, next year, 2 years from now, what they have in terms of liquidity might not be enough, right? So maybe then jumping back and then doing the same thing with the fee switch and vice versa. So not much else to add other than that. Again, I think this is expected.
Yeah, fee switch is one for, or the alternative to it is one thing to watch for people interested in Minswap and following along with what's there, because they've been a very solid protocol since the beginning. I know there was the issues that were found in the smart contracts, but that was thankfully found. There was no risk, no one's funds got access or anything like that. But apart from that, the protocol has been really good, has been pushing new updates and pushing, I suppose, this other dexes the whole way through to keep innovating. And I really do like that they have such a solid liquidity. It means that if someone comes in and tries to sell a big amount of Minswap tokens, then it's not going to really crash the price like it could potentially do on some other tokens, because there is so much liquidity there. There was one other, so Wingriders put theirs out. Wingriders have gone quiet, I suppose, the last while. TVL is down to 10 million, trading volume just over 12 million. But they still have a lot of farms, and I know there's some people really like Wingriders because, look, technically they're a very solid DEX. I think personally they would do a lot better if they got rid of this guy and had different branding. It's funny, this alone has stopped people using it, just kind of what that brings. But in terms of technically, the DEX is very solid, and when I've used it, I've never had any issues with it. These types of reports, I love to see these coming out. Indigo are another protocol that does them. They haven't brought theirs out for July yet. But if anyone in the comments knows of any other protocols, or if you do, Farid, that do these, I'd love to see them. And anything jumps out there, or any other protocols you've seen doing these reports?
Yeah, I'll touch on other people that I've seen doing the reports. I know Levvy Finance. I covered this on one of my first live streams, which you actually joined me in on. I want to say thank you for that. That was amazing in terms of the turnout for that. But Levvy Finance, right, developed by the Ip Society, they put out their first monthly report. And that was one that I did not expect. I think they had a total of 5 million in terms of TVL within just their first month to month and a half of launching. And we also have seen, I think there's Fluid tokens also now also beginning to do their own monthly stats. So I think monthly stats are huge. They are definitely necessary. I'm a visual person, and a lot of people may not necessarily be keeping up with, the Discords, the Telegram, the actual tweets themselves. When you put out a picture, it's really hard to glance over that, especially when it's visually laid out in a nice and simple way, right? So, like for these guys, I mean, you're not seeing a ton of information or a lot of different things being presented. It's nice, it's short, and it's concise, and I think it's really what we need more of in this space. So I commend Wingriders, I commend Levvy Finance, Indigo, all these platforms building out and putting the time into putting out their monthly stats, because this is the stuff that gives community confidence and the reassurance to continue investing in a protocol, right? It's a little hard to continue investing in a platform when you don't know how well they're doing. And this gives you that easy gauge as to what is performing, what isn't performing. And then month over month, right? Because these aren't being released every 2 or 3 days, you have a big enough time frame to feel confident in the overall growth or decline of that particular platform.
Yeah, I really, really like the monthly reports, and I had forgot about the Levvy Finance one. I went looking there. I had retweeted it. Just a picture. It's so easy to get a very quick overview of what's going on without having to dig down into the stats and numbers yourself. So any protocols that are out there, do put them out. I will cover them on my channel, and I'm sure you cover them. I've seen you covering some of the monthly reports before too. So they are a great way to get information out there quick. I see Berg says non-JPEG NFT marketplaces like Crete. I'm not sure if that was related to something we were talking about, or do you know, Farid?
No, if there are any other non-JPEG marketplaces, I'm wondering what they're selling. Those are the only marketplaces that I'm aware of. But I mean, outside of JPEG.store specifically would be Plutus.art, token.io. I know that one's kind of faded off a little bit. We saw CNFT.io close down. And then there's also Flipper.io. So I'm not sure what they're referring to with that comment there, because again, all the marketplaces that I know are selling just that JPEGs.
Yeah, let us know if there was something else. Sorry, I'm not sure what it was related to. GTA, good to have you here. So I think that was the monthly reports. Let me see what else we had to cover. And if anyone has questions or anything down below, do let us know, and we can have a chat around any specific topics that you have. So World Mobile have continued their buybacks. So it's good to see these are now, it looks like, on a weekly schedule. They were monthly when they started initially. And we had the biggest one this week, which was 14,000 WMT. Look, these are, in the grand scheme, these are still very small, but it's what it symbolizes for me more than anything else, in that this is money generated outside of what they're doing with blockchain and put back in to help support the infrastructure. A lot of times what we get with cryptocurrency is it's the same money, is just cycles through all the time. So anytime that there is a real world interaction where you have money being brought in, the system is being used outside of just crypto people, this is a really good thing. And actually I got this in the post the other day, so I had to wear it, the World Mobile Connect the Unconnected shirt. So I had to mention the buyback today when I was wearing this. But your thoughts briefly on World Mobile? I think I've seen you talk about them a few times as well.
Yeah, they were one of the projects that I've been covering more and more, especially within the past couple of months. I try to cover platforms, obviously, that I believe in, but that I think are going to be game changing here within the ecosystem. And I don't think that you can make that statement without including World Mobile. Their organization, their attention to detail, and their transparency with the community is what keeps me covering them. I've had Mickey on the channel recently as well, getting some alpha as to what they're doing. But their mission, like you said, to connect the unconnected is one that I can get behind, right? I've got family that aren't necessarily in the same country that I live in. To have a platform like World Mobile, I think would be amazing to have. Now, specifically to their buybacks, I think obviously this only incentivizes more stakers and Earth node operators to come into the ecosystem. I think the fact that they're doing this on a weekly basis is amazing. It really shows that they're putting their money where their mouth is and actually investing back into the believers of the project. In closing, I think their latest moves strategically have also been amazing. I know that they just partnered up with Conflux, and they've also brought on some new advisors, and they just got some additional licensing to operate within the US. So definitely a project to keep an eye on from my standpoint.
Yeah, lots going on. It was quiet there for a good while at this point, but the last few weeks seen lots coming out of them. And you've had Mickey on covering, and so have I. So anyone interested, you can go and check out both interviews there for the latest. Cardano feed, what's going on? Anyone on Twitter? Really good account to follow to get a lot of the latest information on Cardano specifically, and they have a newsletter there too. Just before we move off, just because we mentioned Levvy Finance, so discuss the IPS ID Quota Wolf, if I'm pronouncing that right, district, and that Levvy has earned cabin holders in that district 38k ADA in the first month. I think that was on here, was it? So it's slightly less here, but maybe this was a few days ago. So what they do, and I suppose this links back to what we were saying about a project bringing out multiple tokens when there's a new protocol comes out or a new project comes out of the initial one. The Ape Society didn't do it. They have launched Levvy as part of the whole ecosystem they're building, and Society Token is a part of that. But what they've also done is the fees generated by the protocol get paid back to cabin holders within that district. So it's probably too much to get into explaining how the districts work and everything within the Ape Society here. But there's different districts, and then there are, what are these? I forget the word of what levy is. Not the monument. Can you think?
Um,
It'll come to me after. In the center of the districts, why can I not think of it? What Levvy Finance is as a part of it. Someone will think of it down below. Crypto chiropractor might think of the word. It's not coming to me. But they will be bringing out more protocols like this. And as they go into the different districts within Ape Society, then they're all going to earn based on the fees of the protocol. So it's a good approach. I like that too. It's helping the initial protocol and helping people who believed in it early on. What else have I missed here?
If I could add, and I think, at least I was thinking of monuments, right? Because I think it's not every district that has a monument, but like every 2 or 3 districts has one of those key things in the middle, which were hidden when they released it. But I think because we had a conversation earlier, right, about when a project needs to have multiple tokens and when they should just have a single token. This is, I think, the standard. This is an example of a team that, like you said, thought about the fact that they wanted to have an entire ecosystem landmark. That's the word.
I couldn't think of it.
Monument, landmark. I think potatoes. Close enough. But I think to reiterate that point from earlier, right? This is a team that knew we only need one token, and we're going to integrate this in everything that we build. And they've obviously put enough time and thought into this, right, that they've incorporated and even giving back additional utility to cabin holders within a specific district. I didn't really understand what that stat meant there. So I want to say thank you for you, Paul, for breaking that down, and for the gentleman that asked this question. But this, I think, is an example of what people need to do, because not only can you use their token in all these different ways, they've also got, I think, their Sana, they've got their stake pool, and they've got other landmarks that have yet to be released or revealed just yet. So this, I think, is a team really showing how an ecosystem should be built around a single utility token.
Yeah, it's probably one I had the team on there a while ago. And to be honest, I hadn't done a deep dive into the project until that. So I learned a lot on it. And it's one I probably need to cover in more a tutorial type video at some point too. Just to catch any questions before we move on. Suggestions on linkage finance. I think we covered that a good bit towards the beginning of this. The high level of it is everyone needs to decide for themselves whether they want to take the risk. Personally, I will put something into it. This is not financial advice or anything like that. I'll put something into it. If the price of it moves fairly quick, then I'll be taking out my initial capital as soon as I can. Generally, that's what I do. And with things that are more risky, I aim for that at lower multiples. Then if I have longer term belief in a project, then I will let it run a lot longer. But generally, I'll get my initial out and then keep some to see where it goes. And look, linkage finance could be a brilliant protocol. We don't know. It's just early so far. So it's the risk reward ratio. Everyone, I talk about it a lot, have allocations within your own portfolio of some is funds you don't touch for 5 to 10 years. Some is what you put into DeFi. Some is what you put into degenerate plays and different things like that. So it's up to everyone to decide where they fit in that. Decentralize everything. Would love to hear about dApps on Cardano comparing to other native dApps on Ethereum, for example. Would like to see how UTXO is making industry firsts on Cardano that can't be achieved on Ethereum. It's probably a full video and a bit of research before it to do something like that rather than getting into it here. There has been some interesting posts on Twitter. I probably can't find them now, but people were posting what they're doing with the UTXO and where they're submitting one transaction and buying off multiple dexes. So things like that are possible, that the end user can submit one transaction, but it goes off and buys. So say you want to buy a lot of, let's say, Society just because it's here, you can submit your one transaction and it can go off to 4 different dexes and buy part of the tokens on each of them. So it means that you're not pushing up the price with a market order on one dex. You can spread that out and you as the buyer should get better value. The opposite can happen on selling it. I suppose with UTXO, off the top of my head, you can send multiple tokens within one transaction, where on Ethereum, if you want to send one token, you have to send that token, then you send another one. But with Cardano, you can send, I've seen people sending 50 tokens out to multiple different recipients with one transaction. Anything else off the top of your head, Farid, before we move? But definitely a good topic for a video at some point.
I agree. I wouldn't say necessarily adapt, but for me, the clear distinction was like just something as basic as just staking, right? The staking approach on Ethereum versus the staking approach on Cardano. And so I'll just keep it at that. But I definitely think that what we're seeing here on Cardano, again, it's taking a little bit of time to build, but it'll be more than worth it once things are actually up and running.
Yeah. So just to move on then, before one project that I know you pay more close attention to than I do is MELD. Can you give the latest on what's going on with that?
Yeah, sure thing. So MELD is gearing up to have their official neobank launch. And so for the viewers, I'm sure a lot of them have already heard about MELD, but for anybody that hasn't, they're going to be a lending and borrowing protocol somewhat similar to what Lenfi is doing. Now, MELD's offering is going to go a little bit past just the regular crypto to crypto. Their core offering, I think in my eyes, is going to be their crypto to fiat portion of the protocol, which allows for you to put down collateral, right? But like Eric Threadgill mentioned earlier, what we see right now is people putting down crypto and borrowing more crypto. Well, in this case, you can put down crypto and actually have that be converted and take a loan in fiat that you can then use to pay your bills, buy a house, pay your cart note, whatever the case is, and you can then pay that loan back, and then you can unlock your collateral. So that portion of the protocol will be launching very soon. They are, I think, facing some regulatory headwinds with certain countries. Obviously, the US is one of them. But they've officially announced that they are going to be rolling out their MELD mobile application. So this is going to encompass their MELD app wallet, but it's also going to give users a first sneak peek and a first taste of their neobank. So people in the countries that are eligible will have the ability to go ahead and actually undergo KYC, because again, with them being a neobank or a bank, they have to keep some certain know your customer and anti-money laundering pieces of information, just in the event that things go awry, right? So it's not unheard of. When you go to any other bank, you have to undergo those same similar protocols. And so that's really what is coming down the pipes for MELD. So number one, their neobank, and then number two, their mobile application. And if you hold one of the Diamond Hand NFTs, you can jump over into their Discord, get access to the Diamond Hand Lounge, and then you can actually go ahead and get the link to sign up to be a part of the first cohort for their mobile application. The very last thing, you actually just scrolled past it there, was the airdrop. They've also got an airdrop campaign, basically looking to raise as much awareness surrounding what's going to be coming out over the course of the next few months. And I think you actually were on the MELD YouTube channel not too long ago with Ken, and some spicy things were said. And obviously, some events have transpired since then surrounding their YouTube channel. But I think that in itself is another conversation for another time.
Yeah, thanks for that. I get a lot of questions on MELD, and it's not one that I follow too closely myself. Ken is meant to be coming on the channel to give that type of an update, but it's great to get it there from you. Yeah, I was on, Josh invited me on there 2 weeks ago at this point, and there was a conversation come up about XRP, and Ken gave some opinions that weren't very popular or very favorable towards XRP, and the channel got shut down a few hours later. So I'd say there was some reporting happened there on his opinions about XRP, and I won't get into it here because I want to keep my channel. But what else have I got? I realize we're running tight on time here now, so we'll see if anyone has any final questions. We will take them, and we'll finish it up then. But I'll let the questions flow in there just while I touch on the last one or two things. I've seen Charles has got more active in the last week. I think he had 4 live streams within 24 hours. I'm not sure what has kicked that off. I think maybe to do with some of the criticisms around Cardano and scaling and the overall plans. In my opinion, it's good to see that he's back taking more interest. I know he was doing a lot of other things the last few months. So hopefully this means that there'll be a bigger push. But it's one thing people say about it. I look forward to the day where Cardano isn't associated with Charles. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that people don't look and say, that's Charles's project. It should be, they look at it and that is one of the biggest communities, one of the most decentralized, and it's not talking about one figurehead at the top. A lot of it has came from Charles's vision, but as we progress, and Charles has said this himself, that he has succeeded when he's able to step back and the community takes over. But at this point, I think it's still good to have him involved there, and he still is a very big voice in it. So it's good to see him back. The other two things to mention, non-crypto or non-Cardano, was, what did I have here? Yeah, Binance. Look, more rumors about Binance, that the justice officials are considering fraud charges against crypto exchange Binance, and the markets did take a small bit of a dip yesterday on things like this coming out. And it shows how crazy the markets are, that one news report is able to pull the markets down, and based on rumors of something that could happen. There's always rumors going on about Binance, and I'm not saying they're not true. They potentially could be, and I'd say there's definitely questionable things they've done, especially early on when there was just trying to get market share and everything like that. So maybe something like this happens. From me, keep custody of your own funds. Anytime you can, have a hardware wallet, have your own custody. I do hold some funds on exchanges when I'm actively trading, but if I'm not actively trading, then they sit on a hardware wallet. What's your thoughts on these types of rumors in the space, and I suppose never ending?
Yeah. It's one thing after the next, right? And people, I think, in this space like to speculate. Obviously, we like to speculate on the value of different assets that we hold. And so this does not strike me as odd. One thing I did want to briefly touch on was what you had mentioned with Charles and him kind of being out of the picture, not in a bad way. I think we're still in Cardano at the stage where we are in our infancy. And just like in nature, right? You need your parents for a certain amount of time. None of us were able to stand on our own at 2 or 3 years old, right? We needed a parent to guide us. We needed a parent to make our food, etc. I'm not saying Charles is making our food, but he's that guiding parent, right? The amount of knowledge that Charles is able to disseminate using his own platform with, I think, almost 1 million people on Twitter and I think 300 or 400,000 subscribers on YouTube, I think is huge. He's one of the very few founders that I see actively engaging with his community, actively doing live streams. I'm not going to name any other heads of projects, but like, you just think for yourself. You're a very smart person. Who else do you see doing live streams like this other than Richard Hart, which now he's in hot water, right? And so that I think goes to Charles's credibility. Right now, we're at a stage where things aren't able to fly on their own. Everybody's hope is that after governance, after these last few eras here for Cardano, we will be able to fly on our own. But until then, I think Charles is only helping. He's not taking away from anything that we've seen going on here in this space. So I'm happy to see him back on land and having these these YouTube live streams where he's answering the community's questions.
Yeah, actually, that was another screen that I had up. I agree with what you're saying there. I hope you mentioned one name there that I hope we aren't next to follow that line. That most people probably heard this. The SEC has charged Richard Hart, or Richard Schuler, which is his real name, with fraud for Hex Pulse Chain and Pulse X, and accusations that he spent, I think, 11 or 12 million of the funds that were raised on himself and his own luxury goods. Most people within crypto will have seen the videos of the Lambos, of walking out of really expensive stores, not able to walk with all of the bags. So look, I feel sorry for anyone holding, or I seen there's a new video coming out, which looks crazy. I don't know if you've seen the trailer. Anyone that hasn't, you should look it up just to see that, is that really what we want the perception of people outside crypto to have, where some of the stuff he's coming out with. But in that, there's people saying they put their life savings into Hex and locked it up for so many years. And at the minute, it looks like anyone who done that, then they're not going to get a lot back. Hopefully they can, but just be cautious. It's like even ADA. If someone said to me they want to put their life savings into ADA, I would say no, not a chance. Look, obviously, I have big belief in Cardano and ADA and where it's going. I still hold a balanced portfolio myself, and I would never tell anyone to go all in on one crypto. It's just, it doesn't make sense, because even in something you really trust, there's so much external entities that can have an impact on it. You just have to be careful. We'll finish up with the last few comments. So decentralized says, we're looking forward to the Edinburgh Decentralized Index. Yeah, definitely am. So that's an initiative coming from Charles, but it is looking at the crypto space to see, lots of people claim to be decentralized, and how decentralized are cryptocurrencies really. So definitely going to be some interesting results out of that. What else have I missed? Cheers, Eric. Appreciate that. Yeah, I really enjoyed the stream today. It was great to have Farid on, even though it was 7 a.m. for him when we were starting. It was fine for me. It was 1 p.m. But daily, weekly, probably not daily, or maybe every 2 or 3 weeks, we could hop on a stream if Farid was up for that, and maybe pull in some other guys at times too. It's I enjoy it. I think I get value. Hopefully other people watching get that too. Give it a like and subscribe if you're new. Farid's channel is linked down below. I think most of the questions that I'm seeing now are ones that we have covered already. So look, Eric says it's 7 a.m. for him too. Well, thanks for tuning in. I do appreciate that, Eric. So Farid, any closing thoughts or anything we've missed today?
I mean, if you want a list of anything that we've missed, there's been so much going on in the space. Yeah. I don't think we'd have enough time. We need like a 24-hour stream to talk about it all. I think my closing thoughts are, we're still early. There's hiccups not only within Cardano, there's hiccups all over the crypto space, but that's okay. We have to have this long-term mindset, and I'm definitely here for the ride. In terms of, collaborating with you, I'm more than happy to do that. I want to just say thank you. Shout out to Paul, what he's been doing for the Cardano community for, I think, maybe 4-5 years now. You've been here since the very beginning. It's just been an inspiration to me. So thank you for sharing your platform. This has been an awesome chat. It's crazy to think that an hour's already gone by. I was thinking that this was going to take a little bit out of my day, but I'm like, man, where's the time gone already? So I'm excited for this. I definitely got value out of it. As you mentioned before we started streaming, it's always easier to do things when you have somebody else there with you. So I've enjoyed this entire time. I'm looking forward to collaborating with you. You're definitely more than welcome on my platform, and I look forward to staying in touch.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, anytime we can hook up again. Yeah, like we said before, I think these types of things are good in that you're not listening to one person's opinion or views on certain news items. It's great to have the over and back and even disagree on things at times. I know when Pete was on, we seen things in different ways, which was a good thing. It shows that not every view is right, or there's going to be different viewpoints on things. So look, everyone watching, thanks very much for tuning in. Give the video a like, subscribe, share it out if you think others can benefit. I will stick some timestamps on this after, and enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are. Farid, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.